Welcome back to Veterans Forum, a program by veterans, about veterans, for veterans and their families. I'm your co-host, Bob West, with Ray Chattery and Jerry Devlin. Our goal is to provide you with important information on legislation, benefits, programs that are important to you and your family by interviewing leaders in our community. Jerry, who do we have with us today?
We're very fortunate tonight, Bob, to have two guests who've been with us many times, and they're the two legislators who have really distinguished themselves as the best friends that veterans have in Annapolis. Senator Doug Peters has a unique experience. There's 188 members of the General Assembly, 47 senators, 147 delegates. He probably is the only one who began his public service career in the veterans movement. That before he got into politics, he was the commander of two of the four veterans organizations here in Bowie, the VFW and the American Legion. And he is himself a distinguished veteran who received the Bronze Star in Operation Desert Storm. So he doesn't have to, we don't have to explain anything to Senator Peters about what the veterans really want and need. And then we have Geraldine Valentino-Smith, who, while not actually a veteran herself, comes from a family who have just seemed to have veterans all over the place. And in large measure, her political career, certainly in the General Assembly, was helped a great deal by the support she got from veterans organizations. And both Doug and Geraldine in the legislature never forgot for one moment where they came from. And speaking as one veteran who's down there a lot, we have these two legislators to thank for the good things that we sometimes get in Annapolis.
Well, again, it's hard to believe a year has gone by since we've had this program again where we're getting updates on Annapolis legislation. So I certainly want to welcome Doug and Geraldine again to our program. So Doug, let's start with you as far as the bond bill is concerned. So what's going on with that?
Well, this year we had a veteran that many of you and I know, Henry Turner, come up and ask for $100,000 so they could build an American Legion annex on the Marlton Golf Course. There's new ownership in the Marlton Golf Course, and they've said that they would donate the land if they built a Legion post there. So Delegate Valentino-Smith and I both cross-filed the bill, and we were able to get the $100,000, and Council Member Franklin, I believe, is going to put in money as well. So they have enough money now to build a post there and on land that will be donated. So it's very exciting that we're continuing to grow the American Legion in South Prince George's County.
That's a lot of money, and that's the kind of support that veterans get within the legislation here in Maryland, and we're all very much appreciative of it. Geraldine, tell us about the veterans hiring practice.
Well, it's a terrific bill that passed because it confirms that employers can give a preference to veterans in hiring. And what it does is it alleviates any concerns that they may have had that the preferences are that you can't discriminate on somebody based on their race, their sex, their ethnicity, their religion. And so some employers may have been hesitant to go ahead and give a preference because it may have seemed as if it were an unfair determinant. But the law passed and it's clear, and it's really going to help ensure that employers feel very comfortable, and they were very optimistic about the bill. They'll feel very comfortable giving veterans a preference now in employment without any worry that they'll be accused of any unfair discrimination against another applicant.
Does the company have to be of a specific size? Does it start with so many employees, or could it be any company?
Right now it could be any company.
Any company,
Correct,
any size?
Yeah, any company, any size.
And it's effective when?
I believe that bill is October 1st.
Okay. Doug, we talked last year about this, about the signage at the DAV. If you remember, we're going to put an electronic sign up there. And we were hopeful this year that we would get the language correct and it would be passed.
We did. We got the language correct. So what happened, and Annapolis can be, as Judge Devlin knows, a very complicated place, but we had money in a Calvert County bill, and that money hadn't been used in 2 years. It was a bond bill that I put in for a food bank. So what happens is either you can repurpose the money or you will lose the money. So I took some of that money and put it toward the sign, $25,000. And what happened is when the bond drafter put the language in, they did everything except left Calvert County in the bill. So I did a little research to figure out how did this happen. And so this year we have every year a corrective bill, and we just changed it to Prince George's County. So the money will be available July 1st.
Well, that's good, because we hopefully we'll get a sign up by Veterans Day this year, and people will recognize where we are.
Right.
So, Ray, why don't you ask your question about one of the important bills that you always wonder about, the subtraction?
Right. Well, to say, we got the $5,000 quite a while ago, and last year, you along with Governor Hogan got the $5,000 exception for 65 and over. And I think you tried to get another $5,000 this year, but it didn't quite make it.
I did. You know, that first one took me 6 years to get. And again, this is not about myself or Geraldine. This is about helping the veterans. So last year when the governor put down the bill, I saw an opportunity to get at least the $5,000. He went for the whole active duty pay to be, you know, retirement to be tax-free, which the fiscal note was over $20 million. So I saw it as an opportunity to try to get something through because I knew that bill wasn't going to happen. And I amended my bill to his bill, gave him the credit, and the bill passed. So this year, we put in the next $5,000, kind of incrementally trying to get to that magic number of $20,000. And the bill had a hearing, but it was never voted on. And I think, you know, it's going to take another 2 or 3 years to get that next, because, you know, there's firefighters that want subtraction, there's over 65 want subtraction bills. So there's a lot of subtraction bills that are put in. So there's kind of a pick and choose, but we'll keep fighting for the veterans to get the next
One of the things
5,000.
about Annapolis is when you have something like that, you have to be incredibly patient.
Yeah.
When I was writing for the County News, I interviewed Art Dorman, who was appointed to the General Assembly in 1965, and he said that his wife had just had a cracked windshield and that he was going to put a bill in to require dump trucks had to be covered and would solve the problem. The bill passed 27 years later. And those people who remember Ed Conroy had a distinguished white hair. Ed said the first time that bill was introduced, he said, I had a full head of black hair. But you do have to be patient.
It's true.
And I think one of the things too, Ray, is, you know, Senator Peters is just a well-respected leader for veterans down there, and he's also chair of the Veterans Caucus.
Right.
And one of the things the Veterans Caucus is trying to do is really build a Veterans Advocacy Day for the opportunity to have a lot of veterans, I mean numerous numbers of veterans, come down at the same time and go directly to their legislators and talk about the importance or their need for increasing that subtraction modification. So we're really looking forward to building that advocacy day in the coming years.
We were talking about other legislation too, the deployed parents legislation that you had sponsored, Geraldine.
Yes,
and
another.
I heard that the first time and I thought, that's really interesting.
It was very interesting and another reflection of the need for patience in the legislature. It's a two-house system. This year it stalled in the Senate. What it really is I looked at the model laws that are available. They evolve over time and they're highly recommended by commissions for deployed parents, and crafted legislation to address some needs in Maryland that would allow those being deployed to have quicker and more immediate access to the courts, to have the ability to do quicker and easier access to their revised child custody agreements as needed. And one of the most important aspects of the bill was to assure that if you had custody rights with your child, that while you were deployed, you have some say in how those rights can be continued. In other words, if your children were with you and their grandmother every week for 10 years, 2 days a week, they were seeing their grandmother. Just because you're deployed, their right to see the grandmother is taken away. What the model law does, it allows the court some opportunity to look at that and allow the grandmother to still continue to have some access. So real important to keep those that have a real sustainable long-term relationship with children of deployed parents involved in the relationship. So we're going to keep working on it.
So that'll be legislation that'll be coming up next year also.
Yes, we're going to work on that. The women's veterans groups came down the actual day of the hearing. They were terrific. They came over to the hearing, and we're going to look to get a lot more people
Was it
involved.
referred to summer study?
No, it was not referred to summer study. stalled in the Senate this year, and so the House held. JPR.
JPR, okay.
Yeah. So.
What is JPR?
Judiciary
Judicial proceedings.
Okay.
So-
It wasn't
Senate
my
version.
committee.
It was not his committee.
Okay.
If it had been, it would have passed because
There you
this is the
go.
leader
There
for
you go.
veterans.
Since we're talking about court issues, Jerry, you were pretty much involved with the Veterans Court, and of course, so was Doug. How is that proceeding? Where's that going?
So I dropped into the circuit court a few months before session, and there is a whole group of professionals that are working with veterans, including the judge on the case. It was very rewarding to see how they operate. There were two mentors there who were, former military, who were helping these young people who were having issues. The state came up with almost $100,000 to support the program. And when I went there, and this is old data, but there was over 500 veterans that have been processed so far, and that was many months ago. So it's been a success. Geraldine was very helpful there because she was in judiciary, and Judge Devlin came down and testified. And now Baltimore City has a docket. They do not have a specific veterans court, but they're in the process of creating that because they saw that they could get funding from the state. And Baltimore County, I went to Baltimore County a few months ago, and their only issue is finding a court room to have it, but they were very excited about it. So it's spreading, and a lot of veterans are being helped.
So it's not in every county yet, but it's working its way through the state.
Personalities become very, very important sometimes. Judge Tillerson Adams is the administrative judge in the circuit court in Prince George's County, and she has been from day one a solid 100% supporter. And unfortunately, a great many judges around the state don't reach that level. That they figure there are enough of these specialty courts now. And you can make an argument too that perhaps the court might be better off in the district court rather than the circuit, because you deal with the kind of offenses that lend themselves to social services. Like you can't take a murderer and because he's a veteran and refer him special treatment. But she's been 100% from the first time it was mentioned even, and she was on board.
And our county has such a high number of veterans.
We have the highest number in the state. What's the number, Ray?
It's close to 80,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that made Prince George's well deserving of this
Oh, sure.
Now, also, we were talking before the program began about a pilot program.
Yes, for
To donate
those
for you
that
casino
are getting
winners.
lucky at the casinos, for those that go to the casinos, there's a pilot program that allows the opportunity when you're cashing out. So if you're cashing out your winning, that you can donate change. If you've got, say you're cashing out for $5.50, you could donate the 50 cents or the residual change to go to the Veterans Trust Fund. And it also authorizes the casinos to put boxes at the exits where people can donate. So it's a pilot program, and I think we're all looking forward to see how people are feeling at the casino and towards veterans.
Well,
And
that'd be an interesting program.
we owe, Ray and I are both past department commanders of the DAV and also commanders of the DAV Chapter 7 here in Bowie. And we have for many, many years had financial problems, like all veterans organizations do. We tend to be older. And in many ways, our financial condition is 100% better thanks to the fact that Geraldine and Sonny Minnick and a few other veteran-oriented legislators made sure that the gaming machines that we'd wanted were put in. And it has been a great success at Chapter 7 and has enabled us to do all kinds of things for veterans that we would not have financially been able to do. So thank you, Geraldine.
Oh, I think anytime we can help get revenue to keep your programming, the services that you offer and provide in the community are just so essential.
And also the 10% goes to the Maryland Trust Fund. And I think the last time they gave us a report, so far it's well over $75,000 have gone into that fund from the lottery machines that they put in since, it'll be 2 years in September. We got our first machines in the middle of September of 2014.
Yeah, there was a lot of trepidation in the beginning
Oh,
because
sure.
everybody wanted what the Eastern Shore had. but this is better regulated. The
Yeah.
money goes to
Yeah,
the
no
Veterans
problem.
Trust Fund,
Yeah.
and everybody seems to be very happy. And even the Eastern Shore posts are now looking at that, saying, you know what, not a lot of headaches, almost the same amount of money. Maybe we ought to think about switching over.
And then on the downside of veterans organizations, I'm national parliamentarian for the Marine Corps League, and I sit on national discipline problems, and it's very evident that a lot of problems are sticky fingers around the country. And as Doug said a moment ago, this, because it's regulated by the State Lottery Commission, all those potential problems don't exist, and we're very grateful for that too. It worked out to be we were a little bit critical of the original proposal,
Oh, I remember.
but it has worked out spectacularly both for Chapter 7 of the DAV and for Post 66 of the American Legion.
We're still trying to get the word out to other posts about how successful the program is, trying to get them involved in the program too.
Now, I have an assignment for you, is that I think we gave an increase to lottery agents this past session, and the Post is considered a lottery
Yes.
agent, and I believe you will get an increase in payouts because you're a lottery
Yes.
agent.
Yes.
So you can check and see if that's true, but I'm quite sure that you would qualify for that.
Well, they told us that we just don't have the room at Chapter 7. We could get the 3-digit, 4-digit Powerball, the same thing at the liquor stores and some of the grocery stores have, but we just don't have the room for that. But we are an official licensed lottery agent.
Right. I think
went through
your
the whole-
percentage just went up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is that you will even be
Now, one thing
getting more money.
One thing that we have right now is we have 5 machines. 2 machines pay $5.99, no taxes. 3 machines pay $4.99. Of course, there's no tax. And that's the only concern to some of the people have, that if you go to the other machine, it's $1,200. But see, that's IRS, lottery, the casino. But this is through the lottery. So I mean, if you win $600 on a 3-digit number, you have to pay taxes. $5.99, you don't.
I see.
And they're thinking about doing a nickel machine, but they're working out all of the paperwork so that if a person hits a jackpot of, say, $1,500, just type in the Social Security number in the machine. It goes to Baltimore. They do all the paperwork, send it back like they do at the casino.
Right.
But that's on the horizon.
We were talking about the vets on driver's license, because right now it's under defects.
Under restrictions.
Restrictions,
I
right.
knew it was something
It's
like
on the
that.
back. Yeah.
Yours
Yeah.
might be under defect.
Could be. So what are they planning on doing?
So we had a hearing prior to the end of session, and Department of Motor Vehicles, MVA, came in and said, we have a big surprise for you, and because they knew I was going to ask about that question, because it's on the back of the license. And they said they just got new printers, and it's going to be prominently displayed on the front of the license. And the other thing that happened during session was that co-sponsored a bill with Senator Simon Ayer, and now the stores are required to take that as your proof that you served in the military, because some individuals had gone to Lowe's and other stores and been rejected for their 10% savings on Veterans Day, and the person said, we don't take that. So now we made it a law that required them to take the driver's license as a veteran's card, because you have to produce your DD-214 anyway when you get that. So now we made it a statute.
I thought the defect referred to my undistinguished service in the United States Marine Corps.
And that's really important. The DD-214 is the document you must have in order to get a vet on your driver's license.
Right.
So it's another reason to go and try and find your DD-214
Right.
and make sure you have it available.
And while we're talking about DD-214s, and I've said this before, a family member, take your DD-214 down to Marlboro at the courthouse to register your wills and get it documented. Because how many times a person will die unexpectedly, a veteran, and the funeral parlor cannot do anything, and neither can Cheltenham or Crownsville, without a DD-214 or proof of veteran service. And it's really amazing that a member of the VFW, our quartermaster Conley has a special file that's in the safe of DD-214s, and how many times some of the widows had to go to him to get that DD-214, especially for Beale and Evans, in order to get these benefits. I mean, that is one of the most important documents a veteran has, is a DD-214.
I know another interest, every time we come, you talk about Charlotte Hall and the work that's done at Charlotte Hall. And a bill did pass to create a special non-lapsing fund for Charlotte Hall. It just takes a unique way of taking the federal funding and working it with the contractor so that then the additional funding can be used to support the employees and improvements.
In addition to the program about deployed parents, you're in the judiciary. Is there anything that, it may not be veteran related, but it would help our female veterans know about some program that might be important to them, as especially young mothers?
You know, we have been working both at the Women's Caucus and with the Veterans Caucus in trying to figure out how we can better develop the information that goes to female veterans. So there was nothing that specific in terms of gender orientation and veterans, but there is a great move and effort that we'll be working with the Veterans Caucus and Women's Caucus to develop better communication channels and reach in. I think one of the things Senator Peters and I have worked on for years with the Victims Resource Center is always making sure that there's an opportunity to have intercepts at the appropriate time for victims of crime and for those who are not getting their child custody, if there are income tax returns that are significant, if there are lottery winnings that are significant, and Senator Peters and I now are going to be looking at racetrack winnings and how large they are. In an effort, and that really is just an effort, generally women are the ones who are left without child custody, and they tend to be a great deal of the victims in our community. So that's what Senator Peters and I have been spending the last few years on with respect to women in the community.
On March the 9th, we had a terrific women veterans event down at Annapolis. And unfortunately, Geraldine, you had a really bad episode with your back that day.
It was the only day that I've ever missed session.
And Senator Peters was there, and we had, I mean, it was a fantastic program. It lasted for 2 hours. Dr. Joanne Fisher was the driving force of this, and there was at least 35 or 40 women veterans there that stated what there was.
They were incredible. They communicated with my office almost weekly and daily, and when we saw that level of energy, Senator Peters and I agreed that we're going to talk to the Veterans Caucus and really try and make that an annual event.
And of course, General Singh, who's our Adjutant General, Major General, she gave a history of how she came up from the ranks, and here she is #1, you know, the head of the reserve in Maryland. It was a fantastic story. She'll be one of our guests, I think, in June or July. She's going to come on Veterans Forum.
And she lives in our district. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Legislative district.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier, too, about the 25th anniversary. What 25th anniversary were we referring to?
So the Operation Desert Storm finished April 11th, 25 years ago, and it happened to be the last day, sine die, of session. So the governor passed down a citation, and we did one at the Senate. And I had some of the individuals who I fought with in Desert Storm meet me there at the Senate, and presented them with a proclamation. And it was very moving. We got a standing ovation, and so it's 25th anniversary of that conflict. Now, it's kind of become the Gulf War conflict. It used to be called Desert Storm. Now I'm a Gulf War veteran, which is different. But what was interesting was that they are building a monument in Washington, D.C., and there were some plans that were given out there on the Senate floor about how the monument was going to be designed, much like Vietnam, where you go in, it's quiet, and then you come back out. But it kind of emphasized our coalition that we built when we were in the Middle East.
This is the 50th anniversary of Vietnam, and in June 18th, 19th, and 20th, up at Timonium Fairgrounds, there's going to be a really fantastic event that Fred Schimber has been in MPT. In fact, it played on MPTV. There's a documentary this past week, and that's one thing. It's really amazing. 50 years for Vietnam. It's just hard to believe.
And 75 years for World War II.
Right.
And one of the things that Senator Peters and I had the pleasure of doing was help honor one of our constituents, Colonel Dillard, who has served in all of those active duty positions. And he came to Annapolis with some of the partisan Koreans that he worked with and was given significant recognition in the House and the Senate. So as a citizen of Bowie and one of our constituents, but as a well-recognized and decorated veteran, we were very pleased to have that opportunity.
Colonel Harlan Tucker is also in that category where World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Very active.
He came out of the regular army, and he was appointed to West Point in 1943, and he was commissioned in 1946. And then he had already been in World War II.
Right.
And then he was Korea, of course, in Vietnam.
Well, I think, Senator Peters, we're going to have to bring Harlan down next session.
Yeah.
Now
I'm old enough to remember the last veterans of the Civil War.
Wow.
When I was a little boy, my dad took me to a function, and two old men came out of a convertible, teetery-tottery, with faded blue. One was white and one was African American. The white guy was the last survivor of the 20th Massachusetts, and the African American was the last survivor of the 54th, of the regiment that they made the movie Glory out of. And years later, when I was a stringer in college, I discovered a clipping. I said, I was a little boy, and I was like 6 or 7, I guess.
Now we're going to do Memorial Day. Ray, this program will be shown in May.
Right.
So you might want to give everybody a heads up who's running it. And
Right. Memorial Day will be on Memorial Day, May 30th, which is the last Monday in May. Marine Corps League's in charge, Free State Marine Detachment, at 11 o'clock at Bowie Veterans Park. Doug and Geraldine will be there for proclamations and give their speech along with the mayor, and there'll be a luncheon at the DAV following the event, and it's always a really good thing. And there'll be anywhere from 35 to 40 wreaths presented, and so put that on your calendar. Come on out. It's on a Monday. It's a holiday, and we just hope the weather.
And I really want to encourage
I want to thank all of you for watching Veterans Forum. It's kind of hard to believe, but our 30 minutes are up. And I want to thank Senator Peters and Delegate Geraldine Valentino-Smith for coming and presenting this important information to you about our legislation. Now we ask you to get involved. You or a family member, stop by the DAV or the American Legion. Find out what's available to you in legislation, benefits, and programs that we have because of your service. And thank you again for watching Veterans Forum.